Hello and welcome to the monthly Ordnance Power Hour podcast. I'm Master Sergeant Angela Johnston, your CMF 89 Alpha and Bravo Talent Management NCO. I'll be your host this month and am joined by Sergeant First Class Cody Bernard and Sergeant First Class Edwards. Sergeant Edwards, I didn't get your first name.
Adam.
Sergeant First Class Adam Edwards. He is the incoming replacement for Sergeant First Class Bernard. Sergeant First Class Bernard, would you please take a minute to explain yours and Sergeant First Class Edwards' role in the 160th?
Absolutely. I appreciate you having us on today. Between myself and Sergeant First Class Edwards, we have held every position that the 160th has to offer for us, from ammunition specialist at the 3-5 platoon level, currently up to our regiment seat now where we sit as the career field managers. Everywhere in between that, as section sergeants, section chiefs, platoon sergeants, you name it, we have been able to hit those pinnacles in the regiment.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's been a pretty good journey for us. So.
Yeah, that's really cool. So thank you really for coming here, and I know both of you are from Campbell, so I really appreciate you guys making the trip up here to be part of this podcast. In this podcast, I wanted to discuss recruiting and broadening opportunities for the Ordnance Branch members. Anything from SVAP to warrant officer, basically anything that would be applicable for them to apply to and not necessarily get picked for, like drill sergeant and recruiting. Soldiers are uniquely needed in formations as mechanics of all kinds, ammunition specialists, and ordnance disposal specialists. So we have units that are actively recruiting and looking for service members to fill positions in special mission units out of Bragg and DC, as well as opportunities, like I mentioned before, Ranger, Warrant Officer, SFAB. All these locations typically hold briefings to search for the ideal candidate. Can you give a brief overview of 160th SOAR before we discuss the recruiting and selection process?
Yeah, absolutely. So the 160th SOAR, our mission is to organize, equip, and train and resource to employ Army Special Operations Aviation Forces worldwide in support of these contingency operations and support of the warfighting commanders. We're commonly known as the Night Stalkers, and just like our aviators counterparts, we are always looking for support MOS soldiers to also, put those helicopters in the sky and take those customers to the target. So we have the train as you fight mentality, and because the regiment is blessed exceptionally with resources and extensive realistic training, we have a variety of environments that we train in, and I promise you, as an 89 Bravo, I think we see more ammo here than anywhere else in the Army, and it really allows you to get in touch with your job and learn every aspect of what we can do as an ammo soldier.
Yeah. And do you, I know both of you are 89s, do you guys work with, because this is for the Ordnance Branch, mechanics or like 91s or 94s? Do you think that they also see a broader spectrum of maybe opportunities?
Absolutely. So we have mechanics in the 160th, and I would say there's an equal share for them of work as well. They're also allowed and privileged to serve on the FARP team, which is one of the 160th's biggest missions for the support soldiers.
Okay.
So without the FARP team and the 3-5 platoon and our airborne operation, like I said before, those helicopters are not going to go nowhere. So we know that conventional Army does have FARPs, and they do serve their role. I believe the 160th has just perfected it in a different way, and it has allowed all support MOSs, such as the mechanics, 89 Bravos, fuelers, commo, to all come together and pull their weight on that team.
Awesome. Yeah. So what are the specifications necessary for a candidate to apply to your unit?
So currently the unit has MTO spaces all the way from E1 to Sergeant First Class. That is spread out through 4 battalions that are geographically located in the continental United States. So JBLM, Fort Campbell, we have Savannah. And basically, you will submit a packet unless you're DA selected. We tried to move away from DA selection when we have candidates in the queue, because we don't want to make anybody come somewhere they don't want to be, and maybe it's not for everybody. But the packets are easily accessed through Special Operation Recruiting Briefs, which are located at major AITs now. I know they're doing it at Eustis and Fort Lee, Riley even. But you can go to simple as Google search, type in 160 SOAR application, and we actually have a whole website now ran by the SORB.
The internet's amazing.
Yes, it'll give you step-by-step process. If you think you have a question, or man, I wish they would explain a little more about this, I promise you there's a link on there.
Yeah.
It tells you how to submit a packet, and the packet is in chronological order, what questions we'd like you to answer. Nothing too crazy. I would think it'd be expected the same for most even regular conventional units.
Okay.
But that's
Cool.
the first step in becoming a Night Stalker, really.
Conventional units don't get to pick their soldiers, so
That's
that
true.
is one
That's true,
one
yeah.
difference there. But I
That is
think
true.
it's good to be able to say, this is what we're looking for, and for the soldier to then be able to say, I can do that, or
Sure.
I'm qualified for that.
So a lot of our things, like I said, they sound pretty easy on paper, but I understand they could be disqualifiers for a lot of people. So we look for financially stable individuals. You know, the ACFT score is something that, you know, you don't just want to pass to come to EGP and then serve in the unit. You got to have 70%.
EGP, have you?
Enlisted Green Platoon. So
Oh,
that's
okay.
the assessment, the 5-week assessment process. So if your packet is favorably assessed by a recruiter in the CMF, you will be placed on ATAR's reservations to attend the 5-week course at Fort Campbell.
Got it. And that'll be the EGP. right?
Correct, yeah.
Green Platoon. Okay.
So we're looking things like that. Obviously, you can't be flag, things of that nature.
Are any of these things waiverable?
So right now, the things personally, when we're talking with our recruiters, we also have a GT requirement of 100 or higher, but we have wavered them down to 95. I've seen personally in the 89 Bravo MOS,
Okay.
and that's with a promise to pay back the unit once we assign you. You assess favorably that you go to BSEP within a year of attending.
But the unit is going to send them.
Absolutely,
If
and that's
you're
kind
gonna
of our
support them in that.
promise to them as well. So you get to the unit, and then you're set aside that time to study and raise that score. And that also opens you up for opportunities if you'd like to leave us, that, hey, if now you have a 110 or higher,
Yeah.
and you want to go to another higher tier unit, by all means, now you have that out of the way. So it only assists the soldier at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. So what happens, so let's say a soldier goes through, they do all of the requirements, they meet all the specifications, they do all the requirements. What happens when a soldier's application is accepted? Do they just, you said that something goes into ATARs and then they go to school?
Right, so the SORB has come a long way in the last year or two. They've been revamped because there used to be a lot of people would send their packets and there wouldn't be a status update on them, or maybe they were about to deploy, and if they didn't get the answer before they deploy, they would lose that chance in their career. So when we had basically new leadership take over, they had some new ideas and they put timelines on these things because at the end of the day, they knew they were affecting soldiers' lives, families, PCSs. So upon application, myself and Sergeant Edwards, we have 5 days, business days, to respond to an application, whether it's favorable or not.
Okay.
Once we give that yes or no, if it is a yes, that goes back to the SORB. That gets processed immediately, and they look for the next available ATARS class dates for the Green Platoon, and that soldier will be notified, and so will the chain of command that they've been assessed favorably. We don't want the soldier to sit there and wait for a month or 2 months that maybe they'll get into the 160th. And the same goes for a no. If it's a no because they had a disqualifier, or maybe we're just full on that current rank, the soldier knows immediately, and as long as they're not DNR, drop no return, never to return, they can reassess later down the line, perhaps if a spot opens up or their rank changes. So unless they're told not to reapply, that door stays open for them.
Okay, that's awesome. Now, if somebody is told not to reapply for 160th, does that then close the door for any other special units? Do you know?
I can't speak for the other units, but I will say a lot of the SMUs kind of have the same vision of don't lie. Be honest with all your assessments. I know for myself, and I know Sergeant Edwards agrees, I would rather you be very truthful on your assessment. If you got a speeding ticket 10 years ago, just tell us.
Yeah.
We usually find out if you don't, right?
Yeah.
That goes the same. If you don't get accepted in the 160th and maybe you want to go Rangers or another SMU, just tell them, hey, I didn't assess favorably for this unit, it's because of this reasons. That honesty will probably go a long way in their books. They're not going to hold it against you.
Yeah.
Whereas if they find out later down the line, because we're a very small community,
Yeah.
it could not end great for the soldier.
Right.
So
Yeah, I'm the kind of person that tells on myself.
I'm the
I
same.
did a security clearance one time for my secret, and the guy was like, anything you'd like to tell me? And I was like, one time I got a speeding ticket when I was like 15, and I had to do this, and he was like, that's not necessary. I think I was like 27 at the time, and he was like,
We
anything
just
within
need to know
like,
10 years.
yeah, he's like 10, maybe even 5. Like,
Right.
don't
Right.
tell on yourself. He didn't say that, but he was just kind of like, we don't need all that.
Right, right.
I'm definitely that kind of person. So they apply, they get accepted, they go to EGP. Where do you see candidates failing, and how do you think they could best prepare themselves, at least for 160th specifically?
Sure. So I would think enlisted Green Platoon's biggest challenge, especially for a lot of new soldiers, is physical fitness. We drop a lot of soldiers on physical fitness. Fort Campbell's a very unforgiving state with weather. If you go in the wintertime, it's extremely cold, and if you come in the summertime, that's heat you never really experienced. So I see a lot of soldiers that, you know, they're not really up to par on ruck marching. Maybe they haven't done a 4-mile run in a while. If you're barely getting by on an ACFT event, and you're right around that 60 or 61 points, Fort Campbell is the spot that will put you below that passing.
Right.
So again, on that 160, Go 160th website, there's an awesome training plan that was put together.
I was just going to ask about that.
Yeah,
I know
somebody
a lot of those units will do
way
that.
smarter, way more credentialed than myself went and took their time out of, if you're bad at rucking, click this link.
Oh, wow.
And do this for week 1 up to week whenever, and for everything, running, all that stuff.
I know I can't apply anymore, but I might check that out just for
I mean,
to get better. Yeah.
Honestly, it's awesome because that's another thing that our unit has to offer. It's the Thor 3 program itself. Once you become part of the unit, it's more than Army PT.
Right. So before we go much further, for those that don't understand what Thor 3 is, can you explain a little bit about Thor 3?
Sure. So Thor 3, you know, it's optimized human performance. It really gets you into your entire holistic approach of physical fitness. It doesn't just make you, you know, come in and you're doing push-ups and sit-ups. You know, as our time when we came in the knees, ankles, rotations, which I still do, even though they say we shouldn't.
They're good exercises.
They are. They work. But you know, we have trainers, like I said, with master's degrees in fitness and nutrition that will sit down with a soldier. It doesn't matter if you're an E1 to a first sergeant.
Yeah.
And customize a plan for you, because not everything.
And like in-house physical therapists too, right?
Yes,
so you don't have to
absolutely.
wait months to get in to see them.
Absolutely.
Go
And
and get a plan and
yeah,
get
and
better.
Because it really, with this, as much as we expect out of the soldiers, that's those rewards that come later on. You know, if we're gonna wear you out faster than maybe your peers, we definitely try to take care of you and get you back in the fight just as fast.
Right.
But because that one shoe size doesn't fit all, it's hard to tell the soldier if they're failing a run just to go run. Well, maybe they can't. Whereas a Thor 3 specialist might, you know, hey, let's introduce you to biking or swimming. And the next thing you know, well, I didn't know, but now I'm running faster because of this. And they're available all the time, free of charge. Like you said.
Yeah, we experienced Thor 3. I experienced Thor 3 in 528th, and it was mind-blowing. It was just amazing how much is there. So talking about Thor 3 and the opportunities there, are there any other opportunities that might sway a soldier to be more interested in 160th?
Absolutely. And actually, I would like Sergeant First Class Edwards to go over a couple of these, because I know he wrote some down that he wanted to share with the group.
So there's, you know, a ton of opportunities, you know, within the organization that you really wouldn't experience anywhere else. You know, for, you know, a lot of my counterparts that I talk to, one of the big things is schools, right? And having the opportunity to go do schools. And I'm not talking about, you know, the super swoopy schools and, you know, those types of things.
Right.
Really the key point here for us is we have the budget to do it, right? So
That's fair.
if you have time on your calendar and, you know, you want to hit things like, you will do airborne, you will do SEER, but Pathfinder, air assault, we've had personnel go to Ranger School. You know, you have your battle staffs, and we also have a lot of MTTs for like joint firepower and things like that that are actually held on the compound. So having that budget to be able to support the soldiers, to be able to further themselves in the Army is really important.
Yeah, and a lot of these schools don't, like you said, they're not just 160th schools, they transfer into the regular Army.
So right, just become more well-rounded, right? Like that's what the Army expects of all soldiers. And we still hold that standard too as well, so.
Yeah. Now you said that you've been in 160th for 13 years. Is this, I don't want to sound judgmental here, right? But is this a place where you stay and never leave, or is it like kind of like Sergeant Bernard here, where you do your work and then you find your way back to the regular Army? And not so for you specifically, but I'm saying like for soldiers, right? Is the intention to keep them there long term, or like is there a certain like years cutoff that the unit looks at? Is there something?
So I mean, really, bottom line here is you know, the unit does invest in soldiers. You know, so Really, what you're looking at is a 3 to 4 year requirement. Is what's
Oh, okay.
required from you, from the regiment.
Yeah.
After that point, obviously we like to retain talent.
Sure,
But if you want to seek out other opportunities or potentially go somewhere else, there's nothing really stopping you from leaving.
Right.
A lot of people like me that have been here for 13 years is because I love it here.
Yeah.
Right. It's rewarding.
It's a
the
great
pride in the
opportunity
unit.
and environment, yeah.
And so that's the reason why I chose to stay within the organization.
Yeah, but nobody's saying, no, you have to give me 10 years, or no, you
Oh,
have to give me
absolutely
15.
not. No.
Yeah,
No.
okay, cool. Yeah, because I know a couple soldiers I've talked to in other units, special units, they're like, well, I have to stay here at least until 6 years, and then at 6 years, then they'll consider letting me go. And I was like, dang, I did not realize that. And it might just be that niche unit that they're in, but just thought I'd put the question out there just in case soldiers are like, look, I want to see what 160th has, but I also kind of want to see what 101st has, or whatever,
Right.
So being that, like, I think you've been here for a while, or been at 160th for a while as well, right?
My whole career, actually.
Okay, yeah. So do either of you have families? Is that, like, how is that for stability-wise for you guys to just be in the same position and spot?
So yeah, okay, I'll go first on this because I know Sergeant Edwards has been at Campbell longer than I have, but I originally started at Joint Base Lewis McChord when 4th Battalions stood up. And if I would have known then what I know now of how long I was able to be there, it's insane because I thought every year was going to be my last. Like he said, I have 4 years, maybe I'm going to leave somewhere. But my wife was super appreciative that she could have a job and she could keep it.
Yeah.
And even 10 years ago, the Army's got a lot better with the manning cycles and predictability. We've slowed down with Ordnance operations. So when it was like PCSing every 2 years, changing schools, moving, like, man, you're settling a move-in claim from stuff lost and you're already doing a new one to leave. It's stressful, right?
Yeah.
And I'm watching people, my neighbors, leave around me in my neighborhood, and I stayed there. And I watched my house value grow. I watched my wife get promoted in the same spot. I was getting promoted, and I had a constant in life. Something that Sergeant Edwards didn't say, though, we don't like throwing it out there because we want you guys to do it for God and country, but we have enlistment bonuses, retention bonuses that
I was
are
going to ask about that.
huge.
Yeah.
So, we will match the Armies all the time. So if there's a 89 Bravo paratrooper bonus and there's not one for us, of course you can still get that. But when we're short-handed like we are on 10 levels, and right now Sergeant First classes, I don't know many places you can tell a Sergeant First class in their career where if they re-enlist they could get $30,000 or more. It's very rare.
Yeah.
But we offer those out there as even more. Hey, here's the stability, here's the training opportunities, and here's some money that could be life changing for some, for
Yeah.
sure.
Here's a odd question. Maybe you know the answer to it, maybe you don't. Could a soldier re-enlist in a regular Army unit for that 160th bonus if they were going to you guys and they got selected?
Yes,
Do you know what I mean?
they can.
So they would get that higher bonus?
That bonus will process when they pass enlisted green platoon.
Right.
And if they don't, no harm, no foul. We didn't pay you out. You didn't spend it all and have to pay it back.
Yeah.
It can go in the contract. You can say, hey, I got about a year left. I want to take them up on theirs. You can find that tier bonus, get with your career counselor, get that set up in that contract move.
Are
when you
career
pass-
counselors aware of these?
Yes, they are.
Okay.
Yes, they are.
That's good to know, yeah. So I know there's been a lot of turmoil with IPSA and career retention and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, even just now we're reminding our soldiers and the career counselors, like, hey, you can send a hotline. I don't know if you know what a hotline is, but it's where a career counselor sends a message to HRC and says, like, I don't have the option to give my soldier Georgia, somewhere on the East Coast, and they prefer Georgia. Can you help them out? And then we can give them one of our recs. We can't ever use theirs, but they can borrow from ours. And so they can do hotline. So I didn't know if the career counselors were able to say, like, hey, 160th, I know you have this benefit out there for 91 Bravos. Can I use that to send you somebody? So you can.
Yes.
They just need to pass EGP first.
Right, and once once you get in the unit, then you get your feet planted, you open up that realm of possibilities. If you're at Fort Campbell for 2 years, and maybe your spouse has an issue where she has family out on the West Coast and she needs to get there, it's very easy to move personnel within the regiment internally. whereas you're not really doing that whole process from the beginning of I have to request, HRC PCS orders, right? Inter-regiment 4187 blessed off by the sergeant majors. We're moving our own personnel. We're still maintaining our strengths. And hey, this soldier wants to come to Campbell. Well, I have one that wants to go to JBLM. That's an easy hot swap, and both those families win. We've done it to help soldiers with EFMP.
Yeah.
And it's something to know that we can do that internally it's good, because at the end of the day,
It's a lot easier
nobody's
too.
losing, and the soldier's just gaining everything.
Yeah,
So.
yeah, definitely. That's awesome. That's a lot of good stuff. I think we went over pretty much everything. Is there anything else you guys would like to say on your behalf for 160th? I know I don't want to take away from the fact that this podcast is about recruiting opportunities as a whole, right?
Sure.
So there are other units out there.
Absolutely.
But I do, I appreciate the both of you coming and talking about 160th, and I want to make sure that you have the floor to mention anything that we might have overlooked.
No, I think I'm good, honestly. Again, I thank you for bringing us down here. This is a huge opportunity. And the whole time being in the regiment, I don't think we've worked with as closely as the branch manager like we have as of late. So we really appreciate that from you. And moving
Shout
forward.
out to Massar and Moore. He's really
Yeah,
getting out there.
and again,
Yes.
the RSOF counterpart down here to talk to, our actual proponent, and then talk to the soldiers online, it kind of completes that whole, we didn't have that before. And
Yeah.
it's kind of like, that's where you get those stereotypes, those stigmas, maybe someone's not looking out for me, but it's usually not true. You just have to communicate. So I say, the best advice I give anybody, if you're thinking about doing it, and this is for 160th, Rangers, anything, just do it.
Yeah.
Don't ever
Just
talk
try.
warrant officer. We tell our guys and girls all the time, I hate losing our talent, but I will tell you, if you tell me you want to go warrant officer, in 6 months you're still telling me,
Yeah.
I'm going to light a fire. Like, I
Yeah,
want to see you
do it.
succeed anyways, right?
Yep.
So, like he said before, we're not going to force you here longer than your initial commitment, but I encourage people not to say, I'm thinking about dropping a packet. Drop the packet.
Just to never do it.
Drop the packet
Yeah.
and let Green Platoon sort it out, is what I say.
Yeah. Next thing you know, you're going to be a sergeant first class, master sergeant major,
And-
or
yep.
whatever, and be like, dang, I wish I would have.
Woulda, coulda, shoulda, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate you guys being here. I think it's going to be a great podcast. Definitely send the link out when it's done, and appreciate it. Thank
That's
you.
awesome.
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
having us.
Yeah. Thank you.